vpod.ai, your source for information. This deep dive is sponsored by Stonefly, your trusted solution provider and advisor in enterprise storage, backup, disaster recovery, hyperconverged in VMware, Hyper-V, Proxmox cluster, AI servers, and public and private cloud. Check out stonefly.com or email your project requirements to sales@stonefly.com.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're digging into some really interesting material about financial freedom, how to build wealth, and it really focuses on this basic difference. Are you mainly working for your money, or are you setting things up so your money, your assets, actually work for you?
That's the absolute core of it, yeah.
Yeah.
The material lays out this kind of framework. You could call it a cash flow quadrant. And it suggests there's this, well, sometimes fine line, but a really important one between people stuck to seeking security, through a job,
right,
and those who manage to shift focus, building assets that earn for them, achieving real freedom. Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. We want to unpack that idea by looking at the specific kinds of assets mentioned. These are presented as, well, potential ways to get to that financial freedom state. The idea being, maybe you don't have to just work hard your entire life trying to keep up. We're going to explore 8 different asset types.
Let's start with that main concept, the cash flow quadrant itself. So the material talks about the left side. This is typically employees, many self-employed folks too, the main driver, usually security. You're trading your time, your skills directly for that paycheck.
Okay.
And this is often where people, find themselves living paycheck to paycheck, because the moment you stop working,
the money stops. Simple as that. You're literally working for money.
Exactly. It's a direct swap. Now, contrast that with the right side.
How's that different?
On the right side, you've got your entrepreneurs, your investors. Now, they're working hard too. The material makes that super clear. It's not about being lazy. But crucially, they're working for freedom. The goal is different. They're not just earning income. They're building assets.
Ah, assets. Okay.
Yeah. So while employees might work hard throughout their lives, right-siders work hard, maybe especially hard up front, to create assets. Assets that can potentially earn them money for the rest of their lives without working anymore, or at least, way less reliance on their own direct effort.
Oh, it's about creating something lasting.
Exactly. Something that generates value on its own, potentially even building wealth for the next generations.
What hits me there is the leverage idea. Instead of just leveraging your own hours, you're leveraging the asset itself.
Precisely. You're redirecting that effort. Moving away from that linear time for money thing towards creating something with maybe exponential potential. It's a whole different way of thinking, really.
Totally. A real paradigm shift. Okay, let's get into the first asset type mentioned. A business. You see these big, successful entrepreneurs, and sometimes there's this, Hollywood image. Maybe they're corrupt and inhumane cronies or just lucky.
Yeah.
The material actually calls that kind of thinking one of the biggest mental blocks.
Yeah, and it pushes back hard against that stereotype. It says building a genuinely profitable business, actually scaling it, that takes every drop of your sweat and blood.
No.
It's definitely no child's play. Think about people like Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg. The argument is their success came through hard work.
Right, but hard work directed differently.
Exactly. The intense effort wasn't just about earning a salary. It was about building the machine, the business itself. That business becomes the asset that can generate wealth way beyond what their own hours could produce. It itself gains value and produces income.
Okay, so business is asset number 1. Huge potential, but yeah, huge effort and risk too. What if that seems, too much? Especially if you need that job security right now. The material brings up real estate as a second option. And it tackles that first thought everyone has, how could I possibly afford property?
Right. And this is where it introduces OPM, other people's money. It's a key idea.
Yeah.
It basically says you don't always need the whole purchase price up front. The strategy is about, carefully borrowing money to buy rental properties.
Okay, borrowing to buy.
Yeah, with the aim of creating a second income stream.
So how does that stream work, according to this?
Well, the rent you collect from tenants ideally covers your mortgage payments, your property taxes, insurance, maintenance, all that stuff. But the sweet spot is when the rent doesn't just cover it, but actually leaves you with something extra, still adding some money to your pocket each month, positive cash flow.
Gotcha. So you use borrowed funds for the asset, and the asset's income pays back the loan.
That's the core of it. And the material points out another big plus for real estate. The tax breaks. It mentions how real estate investing can often lower your overall taxes, almost calling it like free money in your pocket.
Interesting.
So over time, as the tenants help pay down the mortgage and the property hopefully goes up in value, you build equity, you increase your cash flow, and step by step, you reduce your reliance on that 9 to 5 paycheck. You move towards financial freedom where assets work for you, maybe building wealth for next generations.
That definitely clarifies how it works beyond just hoping the price goes up.
Ugh.
Okay, but what about people really short on time? You know, working crazy long hours. The third asset type discussed is paper assets.
Yeah, and for this route, the material really stresses disciplined spending habits. The idea is pretty straightforward. You consciously choose to invest money instead of, say, spending it all on immediate gratification, like going to pubs and bars every week.
Right, diverting funds.
Exactly, putting that money into the financial markets instead.
And what kinds of paper assets are we talking about here?
The usual suspects, really. Stocks, so owning pieces of companies, bonds, lending money to companies or governments, mutual funds where your money is pooled with others to buy a mix of things, and also GSECs.
GSECs, what's that?
Oh, sorry. GSECs means government securities, basically bonds issued by the government.
Okay.
And the material notes that, each of these stocks, bonds, funds, GSECs, they all have different risk levels. So you pick based on your own comfort and goals.
So with paper assets, you're kind of becoming a part owner or a lender, but without actually running the show yourself.
Precisely. You get to tap into other people's successful and profitable businesses without the headaches of, managing your own company or dealing with tenants in a rental property. The idea here is that by consistently saving and investing, even small amounts over time, it could be a faster way for some people to get out of the rat race of 9 to 5 and ultimately free up their time.
That makes sense. Now, speaking of value, the fourth asset is interesting: commodities. The material actually starts with a critique of paper money itself, calling it man-made, not real, only valuable because governments back it, and they can print more, right? Which potentially waters down its value. Makes you think.
It does raise that fundamental question. What really holds value? Something maybe less tied to government printing presses. And this is where the material brings in commodities, even referring to them as God's money.
God's money. Wow, that's quite a term. What's the thinking there?
It refers to things that humans fundamentally need or have valued for ages. So the examples given are like gold, silver, oil, food grains, even meat. Their value isn't just because the government says so, it's because we need them. Food, energy, or in the case of gold and silver, they've been stores of wealth for, well, millennia.
So they're foundational because they're useful or scarce.
Exactly. They're seen as somewhat irreplaceable for basic needs. And because of that, they can serve as a great protection against inflation. The thinking is, in tough times when other assets fall, things tied to real-world needs or historical value tend to rise in value, or at least hold up better.
So diversification, essentially.
Yeah, diversification and a hedge against potential issues with regular currency.
Okay, moving from the tangible, like gold and oil, to something less tangible, the fifth asset, time. We all say time is money, but this perspective really elevates it, calling time the most precious resource of humankind. Because, simply put, once gone, never comes back.
Right, and what's really key here is how it frames young time as a special kind of asset. It says your young age is your best asset, partly because it gives you a longer runway to take more risks.
Makes sense. More time to recover if things go wrong.
Exactly. A setback in your 20s is usually less devastating than the same setback in your 50s or 60s. It even mentions advice attributed to Warren Buffett about starting investing early, like the huge difference compounding makes if you start at 20 versus 30.
So it's not just about having time, but using it wisely, especially when you're younger.
Absolutely. It points out that even with a regular job, you typically have those 2 days to invest in yourself each week. The weekend, you can just, while it away, or you can actively use that time. Maybe start a side hustle, maybe upskill to get a promotion, or follow a passion.
Use that free time productively.
Yeah. The suggestion is that this kind of active time investment could lead to a life-changing turn. It helps build that safety ring around you, financially speaking.
That idea of investing time leads really well into the sixth asset.
Yeah.
Health. I mean, if time's the resource, your health is your capacity to actually use that time.
Yeah.
It's easy to slip into bad habits, junk food, maybe too much drinking, smoking, justifying it because you work hard.
But the material flags this as a major trap. It talks about the double cost of neglecting health. First, bad habits themselves cost money now, right? And maybe cause minor health issues that cost you time or money.
Okay.
But the bigger issue is down the road. Neglecting health can leave you with huge wealth eroding medical bills into our old age.
Oof. So poor health later eats the wealth you built earlier.
That's the warning. The flip side is investing in your health exercise, eating well, getting enough sleep. The
Mhm.
benefits, well, first, being healthy lets you work more and earn more during your peak years, more energy, fewer sick days.
Right.
And maybe most importantly, it lets you live a long and healthy life to actually enjoy whatever wealth you manage to build instead of seeing it all drained away by healthcare costs later on. It's fundamental.
It really is. Okay, shifting back to assets that generate income more directly, number 7 is online assets. This feels super relevant today and pretty accessible too. The material uses YouTube as an example, pointing out that starting a channel costs absolutely nothing. It is free.
Which immediately makes you ask, okay, how does something free become an asset? The idea is leveraging your knowledge and skills to help people struggling with something you are good at. You share useful stuff or entertaining stuff online.
Build an audience that way.
Exactly. And as you get more popular, more subscribers, more followers, platforms like YouTube might start paying you through their partner programs. Or you can make money from ad revenue companies paying to advertise on your videos or website.
Okay.
Other examples mentioned include things like creating and selling online courses, building websites or blogs that earn through ads or affiliate links, or developing popular social media pages.
Affiliate links, what's that?
That's where you recommend someone else's product or service, and if someone buys through your link, you get a commission. It's another income stream you can add.
Got it. So lots of ways to turn online presence into income.
Yeah, and the really interesting part is that successful online assets can even grow into bigger things. You might hire people, scale it up, almost like a traditional business, but born online.
It shows how knowledge itself can be packaged into an asset in the digital age. Okay, finally, the 8th asset, your network. The material uses that phrase, a happy client is a referring client. Simple but powerful.
Yeah, it's about more than just getting repeat business. It's about building your personal brand or goodwill. Doing great work is obviously step one, right? You need that to get started. But the material says that recommendations from your clients can completely shift the paradigm for you.
How so?
Well, referrals usually come with built-in trust. Someone your new potential client already knows and trusts has vouched for you. That often means an easier sale, faster growth.
Less effort chasing cold leads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's an example given about a catering business. Every party you cater, assuming the food's great, potentially enlarges your network. Guests might hire you for their own events or recommend you to others.
Makes sense.
But the key takeaway is don't just hope your good work gets noticed. You need to actively market yourself. And crucially, let people know you are behind all that good work. Build that brand, nurture those connections. Your network becomes this living asset that can bring opportunities your way.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping up, we've covered 8 really different types of assets. We had traditional things like businesses and real estate, financial things like paper assets and commodities, and then these maybe less obvious but vital ones. Your time, your health, your online presence, and your network. Quite a range.
It really is. And the common thread, according to the material we looked at, is that shift in mindset. Moving from just working for money to building or acquiring things tangible or intangible that work for you. Things that create value or income streams beyond your direct hour-by-hour labor.
Building that safety ring around yourself.
Exactly. Whether it's through property, stocks, skills, health, or connections, it's all aimed at creating more durable security and, ideally, freedom.
It definitely gives you a lot to think about regarding where you put your focus and energy. So maybe here's a final thought to chew on after our discussion. We've talked about 8 different asset types. How might concentrating all your efforts on building just one of those compare? Think about risk, think about reward versus maybe strategically trying to develop several of them at the same time. What could that blended approach look like specifically for you? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive exploring these different ideas for building wealth-generating assets. vpod.ai, your source for information. This deep dive was sponsored by Stonefly, your trusted solution provider and advisor in enterprise storage, backup, disaster recovery, hyper-converged in VMware, Hyper-V, Proxmox cluster, AI servers, and public and private cloud. Check out stonefly.com or email your project requirements to sales@stonefly.com.